Good afternoon and welcome back to our Board of County Commissioners meeting. We are taking up Department 5, which is a public meeting for consideration of an unsolicited proposal for a public-private partnership, which we call P3, to build the Martin County Operations Facility. Afternoon.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Matt Graham, Assistant County Administrator. Joining me today is Sean Donahue, our General Services Director, Stephanie Murley, our OMB Director, and Frank Morley from our County Attorney's Office. So this is an agenda item for the board to consider evaluating our second unsolicited proposal for the operations facility. We received this about 2 weeks ago, and as you may recall, we received one last year from Building Tomorrow's Schools. So in order to comply with the statute, the board would have to accept this. We would go through the expedited process, evaluate it, and then we also would have to accept public comment today. So I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have, but that concludes my presentation on this agenda item.
Okay. Ms. Elder.
Just for clarification purposes, so since we already have a P3 that we are evaluating under the expedited process, if the board accepts a second one through the expedited process, that complicates it, and it's not really expedited anymore, then you have two competing proposals. So it would prolong the review of the one that's currently been approved by the board while we do the other. So it would complicate the process and prolong it a little bit. So I just want to make sure the board is clear on that. And it might change it from the expedited to a longer tract because you have two competing proposals then.
So we accepted the first one on December 2nd.
Correct.
And staff has had those intervening 2 months to review that proposal for Building Tomorrow's Schools project. And then we would have to, if we choose, we would also elect to further evaluate the proposal that we received a week ago or however long ago that was, right?
Yes, that's
Florida
correct.
Development Solutions.
So one of the other nuances is with Building Tomorrow's Schools, they had their proposal valid up until June 15th, if I recall. So one of the things that puts us up against a timeline is if we did move forward with the evaluation today, that's the next board item, we still need time to negotiate that comprehensive agreement should we and the board decide to enter into an agreement with them. So we're up against a number of timelines here.
Madam Chair, if I may speak, I think the P3 process is new to us, but I think there's a nuance here that we weren't as familiar with in terms of the choices that you make in terms of the review process. And we chose the expedited review. As I understand it, it's not an easy way to switch between expedited review and the competitive review process, and that would kind of like start over. So my thought here on the fly is that if the board wants to, before they make a decision, consider the competitive process, we may want to take no action today and let us explore what that means in terms of time frames and other things.
How long would it take for us to explore those things?
I think we would come back next meeting, or the choice is to say, looking at the submittal, which is roughly or you stick to the original plan, original proposal, which was to follow the expedited review, and not accept this proposal and move forward with the second one. I think, as I understand it, that's really our only choice for today, based upon our more detailed understanding of the statute in this process. So I think, for this item, it is, as I understand it, we can't simply accept this one and take it on as the expedited process because we already have started the expedited process. So we either have to start over with a advertised process
With both
of them, or before you make that decision, give staff a couple of weeks to determine, so that when you make that decision, you'll be fully informed on what you feel is the best interest in the county. We've certainly prepared to give our analysis of the original proposal, and we have prepared, a recommendation for that. But I don't want that to undermine your decision unless you're comfortable with that.
Okay, well, for starters, I think that there's been some urgency to pursue this for the last 10 years. And there's real urgency now, so. Commissioner Vargas.
As a personal practice, I never go with one bid. I never do. No, I just don't. I usually go with 3 bids. I think it was mentioned in the meeting where we discussed this over a month ago, well, this is like a roof. The roofer will go away. No, the roofer's not going away. This is a $75 or $80 million project. No, nobody's going away. It doesn't come along every day. I had conversations with Mr. Donaldson about this, and I understand about the traditional route. You need to get bids. We need to have people bidding against each other for this. I'm all for the traditional route. 10 years in the making, another month or a couple of weeks is not going to make a difference, but we need to be responsible with this money that's being spent. This is a huge project. It's a big ticket item. And we don't need to have some glamorous building. It really just needs to be a square building. You need to pare this down. I was told by some staff, well, this is the going rate. No, it's not the going rate. It's negotiable. It's all negotiable. And that is my feeling. I'm very strong about this. Can't fault me for it. You need to know what's out there. And if they choose to walk, then that wasn't the right candidate for us.
Mr. Capps.
I think this is really time sensitive. The FAA has told us to get our public works facility off of the airport, and we have a contractor with Building Better Schools who can meet the time demands and get the job done and produce this building for us in 18 months, which is really what needs to happen. And, when you're looking at timelines, you have to be prepared for unexpected things that could happen in the process as well. I think time is of the essence. So I'm going to move that we deny Department 5 and stick with the expedited process and stick with the first proposal.
Commissioner Heatherington.
I just want to see a time frame that we could consider both proposals. The other one was very good. They submitted it timely. If we were to do this, what kind of time frame are we looking at?
We would, essentially, we would do an advertisement, so it would be more than 6 months.
So you can't just accept this one into the expedited process, have them put up the $25,000, study that within, it took them how long to study this one, a month?
So apparently by accepting the funds, that's the kind of the nuances, as I understand it, of the law. I think we would not be able to accept their funds and do a full analysis under the expedited process. We would essentially be competing them, and we'd have to start over. I think the only thing we could explore is to say that that as I understand it, if we're.
So any proposal, if they're competing, you can't use the expedited process? Is that what I'm hearing you saying?
That's what I'm understanding. That's correct.
Because the last meeting, we were anticipating that we could, on multiple submissions, use the expedited process.
That was my understanding, and my recommendation is that we would take this proposal and do take all of the methods by which the first one was done the analysis on, do the same to this one, and then bring them both back to you with a recommendation to enter a contract with one or begin negotiations for a contract. Because that's really the step process is that you have the analysis, then you decide if you want to move forward, then it is all closed out, and we simply begin determining if we can develop a contract that will be in both parties can accept. And then that contract would come back to you. So any decision today is still not the final decision, but it is potentially the final decision on the process of whether you're still continuing to review one company or if we want to review two. I think exploration of how, under the expedited process, to deal with the second proposer is a challenge for today, for us to come up with any other option other than to postpone all action on both of them to give us time, or to take action on as the motion suggests.
And if we would do that, then we would lose the surety of both bids. Commissioner Vargas.
Again, I'll say this is, it's 4 years. It's not like we have to move out tomorrow. We don't have to move out tomorrow. But the long-term effects of overspending and not knowing what else is out there is permanent. And I think that the responsible thing to do is to seek another bid, which we have one in, and possibly a third. But just to say, well, we have one bid and that's it and it's all good, I can't go along with that at all. Not at all. Not at all.
I would like to pass the gavel and second Commissioner Capps' motion, but the vice chair isn't here. So give me a little guidance here.
I think the chair has the choice, then who you pass it to. That would be my answer.
Okay.
I know Commissioner Campy is on his way, but yeah, that would you choose who you would like to cast the gavel.
There you go.
All right.
Commissioner
Wow, I like that.
Capps is the motion maker, so you
So
have.
he can't?
Yeah.
Okay.
How about you?
Sure, I'll practice. Okay.
So can you clarify, so your motion, Commissioner Capps, is to deny the acceptance of the
D5.
The
D5?
second.
Yep.
So, which means we're not approving the first proposal, but we are determining that we are not accepting any more proposals.
That's correct.
So then, when that item comes up, we have an opportunity to approve or deny that proposal based on its merit.
Correct.
That's correct.
And
And
we also have the opportunity, if we don't want to accept that proposal, then we start this process all over again.
that's correct. You can also, if you, let's say, on the second item, you accepted a proposal, you don't have to accept it until you sign a contract. So you just keep the process going. So that's the issue, is that the accepting or directing staff to go negotiate a contract does not guarantee a contract will be executed, is what I'm saying. And so you have the options up until you decide to actually sign a contract to start over at any time.
Okay, so the board, if approved today, has the authority, once you present this contract, to reject the contract and solicit more proposals.
That's correct. And I just wanted to say, for the public's perspective, the P3 offers timing and savings that a traditional design bid build process does not. And I think it's in this highly abbreviated conversation, which we presented to you before, it's the time value of money and the the method of procurement, design, bid, build, all in one entity is ultimately what's proven why the state adopted this to save government significant funds, because of there is a certain inefficiency in the design, bid, build process. That this new method of procurement, or newer to us anyway, the state's had it for about 10, 15 years, I think, it has proven itself over that time to be an effective tool for government entities to both speed up the and reduce the cost of construction.
Okay, so we're ready to take a vote? All right, your motion?
Yes, I made the motion, and we have a second, I guess.
We have a second. Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Opposed. And that would be Commissioner Hetherington, Chairwoman Hurd, and Commissioner Capps in favor, Commissioner Vargas opposed. Thank you.
Okay. Now let's move on to Department 6.
All right, good afternoon, Commissioners. For Department 6, the county received an unsolicited proposal on October 31st, 2025, and was brought to the board on December 2nd for approval to accept public comment and to evaluate the proposal from BTS. Today, we're here to discuss that evaluation. We do have Mr. Joe Barry, who's sitting right behind me, who is our architect from CPZ, as well as Jay Glover from our financial advisor, PFM Financial Advisors. And the purpose of this meeting is to address this required statutory factors, which there's 5. So 1, the benefits to the public, the financial structure and economic efficiencies, the qualifications and experience of the private entity, the compatibility with regional infrastructure and county plans, and receive public comment and provide comment on why the proposal should proceed. So I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Donahue, our General Services Director.
So starting off with the benefits to the public, the project proposed does meet the CIP needs in the capital improvement plan. It does provide a hardened facility, a large facility that we can bring all the departments that are not centralized now into a more centralized location. It'll be hardened, it'll be newer, and get us out of the dilapidated older facilities that we're in now. That will reduce our capital needs for repairs in the near future, as we need to fix those buildings up if we do decide to stay. So it puts us in a centralized, hardened facility. It allows for better post-storm response for all the departments. It does meet the CIP, like I said, and it also meets the FAA-approved voluntary corrective action plan, and it gets us off of the airport property. And then the financial terms.
So this slide outlines the financial structure of the proposal and the efficiencies it's designed to achieve. The proposed delivery method reduces the overall project timeline, which helps limit cost escalation and accelerates delivery. It is also expected to generate construction cost savings compared to traditional delivery methods through improved coordination and reduced change orders. By integrating design, construction, and delivery, the project incorporates life cycle efficiencies from the outset, supporting long-term performance and cost control. The consolidation component further reduces ongoing operational and maintenance expenses. In addition, the negotiated P3 structure can enhance budget predictability and allocates risk in a manner that protects the county's interests. So overall, this approach is intended to maximize the value for the taxpayers on a $74 million public investment, while promoting both short-term efficiencies and long-term financial sustainability. Additionally, PFM, as the county's municipal advisor, has reviewed the proposal and has identified an option that is beneficial to the county for the financing of the facility.
Okay, the next item is the qualifications and experience of the private entity that submitted the proposal. Building Tomorrow Schools has performed other projects across the state. Most notably nearby is the Indiantown High School. This is the same design team, same construction team that designed and built that that facility for the college. That was a very expedited pathway too. It was a P3 project for the college. Similarly, there's a K-8 school in Polk County, very similar project that was expedited as a P3. PBK is a former Harvard Jolly architects. They've done some very good work across the state. I've got some experience with them in my other jobs. Their design team is very strong. Ryan Inc. is a very large land development firm. This is a small site for them. They do large golf courses and much larger facilities than this, so they're fully prepared to do this work. Greg Fagan is the engineer. He's been around for 35, 40 years, I think. I've worked with him in the past as well. He's very, very good. So their team is strong. They do provide a good service as their references provided.
Mr. Donaldson, is this an old light for you?
It is. It is now.
So, to briefly summarize, Commissioner Campy,
I was watching on my phone.
Okay, so you know what
You
we've
could
done.
have passed the gavel to me in the car.
No, I did.
I apologize.
Would you like me to continue?
Yeah, I'm
All
up to
right.
date.
Wait just a second for.
Okay. All right, I'm going to talk about the project compatibility with the regional infrastructure and county plans. First, this has been included in the CIP for quite some time, past 5 or 10 years, if I recall. It's also been part of the voluntary corrective action plan to leave the airport property, the VCAP. And this project advances the county's long-term facilities strategy by consolidating multiple dispersed departments into a centrally located operations facility, reducing fragmentation and improving coordination. The centralization creates efficiencies in site management, security, and lifecycle maintenance planning. And then further, the co-location strengthens our emergency response capabilities, as Sean has already mentioned, and operational readiness by reducing response time and improving unified command functions. So as I mentioned before in the public comment section, at the December 2nd meeting, the board received initial public comment and directed staff to proceed with a detailed evaluation of the unsolicited proposal. Today's meeting serves as a second required public meeting under Section 255-0653C of Florida Statutes, and all comments received will be incorporated into the county's evaluation and addressed as part of the forthcoming comprehensive agreement should the board decide to enter into those negotiations. And with that, I'll now turn it over to Mr. Joe Barry.
Okay, good afternoon, everybody. Like Matt said, Joe Barry, CPZ Architects. We were brought on to help the county with this project a few years ago, where we began a programming and conceptual design effort. And in that effort, we met with the various departments that were going to be part of this consolidation. We toured their existing facilities. We took measurements. We took inventory of their equipment and their vehicles. And we put together a draft programming summary and developed a conceptual design of what the building could look like. Next slide. So when we looked at this this proposal, we looked at it in a few different ways. Once we feel that it's a thorough proposal and generally supports the project intent. It's a viable development concept. The preliminary floor plan that was provided as part of this incorporated some efficiencies that we didn't consider at the time. And the due diligence that was done for the review of the site plan was evident, where they demonstrated an understanding of the site conditions and the site constraints, generally aligning the site plan with the design intent. They looked at utility connection points and infrastructure, so that was all considered as part of this proposal. We looked at the proposed cost of the project, and with the help of a firm that specializes in preparing construction cost estimates, CMS. CMS is Construction Management Services, and they use detailed quantity takeoffs and historical data to put together a estimate that combines cost of material, labor, and equipment. And comparing the developer proposal at $63 million for construction cost, the CMS proposal came in at $76 million. We looked at the design fees and feel that they align with the expedited schedule. We looked at the allowance for furniture, fixtures, and equipment and feel that that would require further evaluation during the contract negotiation. Next. We also looked at the timeline and realized that 18-month timeline for this project is aggressive. They plan to accomplish this by running phases concurrent, different tasks, overlapping design, permitting, and construction. When we compare it to a traditional project delivery method, we assumed a typical project would look at 9 months for design, 9 months for permitting, and for a project this size, roughly 24 months for construction. So it is a significant savings in time. The developer also proved that they have a track record of completing similar scale projects in similar timeframes. And in that, the time savings is financially motivated. There's a few bullet points here I'll just read through. Reducing general conditions. The longer the project goes on, the more costs there are for general conditions. The shorter the schedule, the lower exposure to escalating costs in material and labor. And it minimizes financing costs. Next. So at the end, we look at this proposal and we feel the risk is on the developer. And as part of the county's effort to develop a comprehensive agreement, they'll look at setting schedule and cost limit expectations. They'll realize that the contractor is responsible for delivering the project within the contract price and also within the project deadlines that are set. Part of this would establish design standards for the project. And that would all become part of that comprehensive agreement.
All right. So the Board of County Commissioners requested public comment at the December 2nd, 2025 public meeting. We're asking that the board hear all public comments today for the second publicly noticed meeting, which will be considered as part of the county's evaluation. Since the board and the public will have further opportunities to review, consider, and comment upon the comprehensive agreement, the county believes the comments made will be sufficiently addressed in the forthcoming agreement. That concludes our presentation for the day, but staff is recommending that the board move that the board receive the statutory evaluation findings, consider public comments, adopt the resolution affirming the public interest determination pursuant to Section 255-0653C of the Florida Statutes, and direct staff to proceed with the remaining required steps, including scheduling the third public meeting and entering into negotiations for a comprehensive agreement. Thank you.
Any questions of our staff? Then I'll go on to public comment. Lauren Hollander is followed by John Fumero. And you'll have 3 minutes to address us.
Great. Thank you very much, commissioners, staff. Thank you very much for this comprehensive review. We are thrilled to be a part of this initiative, recognized through extensive due diligence, the critical need that's present. We commend everybody for taking these expeditious steps in order to achieve the goal. We do get asked regularly about our competitiveness and the ability to save in the arena of the expense of the development. And so part of what you saw staff present is the most important thing is we do hit the ground running as soon as we all get to a place in that comprehensive agreement that inures to the benefit of the county. You know, absolutely within that process, we evaluate all of the costs associated as well as the time and any type of liquidated damages to be sure that we deliver that right on time. In this team that we've presented, there's over 40 years of experience working here in Martin County with multiple developments. And so there is a familiarity as it relates to your needs. And they've worked in the capacity of working together with bringing infrastructure together, developing communities, dedicating certain spaces. So there's a familiarity and an understanding of what that is. This local team that was very effective out in Indiantown felt compelled when there was this need that continued to arise. Is it possible for us to help you bring this project to fruition? And that was the impetus of us presenting to you that unsolicited proposal. So we appreciate the opportunity and commend everybody on this process to try and get to the fastest place of delivery and giving us the opportunity to work together with you. So we support this in any way that your needs are. Thank you very much.
Thanks. John Fumero is next, followed by Debbie Schatz. Afternoon.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair. Good to see you again. Commissioners, my name is John Fumero. I represent Building Tomorrow's Schools, and I'm here to do two things. Number one, to support the staff recommendation and the entry of the resolution prepared by staff, and number two, to compliment the staff. I have handled dozens of P3 projects throughout Florida. I authored Florida's P3 statute in 2010, which passed in 2013. Most public infrastructure in Europe, South America, and Australia is done through this means. The U.S. has been a little bit slow to catch up, but if you look at 595, that was a P3 project undertaken by a Spanish company because there still weren't enough American companies doing P3 projects. But you've put yourself as a leader in the P3, and your staff has followed the law perfectly. And I just want to also, your county attorney's counsel is exactly what I would have told you with my experience in P3. The other proposal would have caused you to get off track and start a whole new process. And Commissioner Vargas, your points are very well taken. And under traditional procurement, you're right. You want to look at, is this really the best price and best project? But that's been done here by your staff, by competent peer review. And also, if you look at the alternative proposal, if there was a difference in price of millions of dollars, it would cause me to pause, but there's not. The price differential is less than 1%. And there's a reason for it, which we don't need to get into. But I think what you've heard here is you've got a project that will make it work on time, on budget, in an expedited fashion. And I would, again, ask you just to support the staff recommendation. Thank you.
Thanks. Debbie Schatz is next, followed by Greg Fagan.
Hi there. I just wanted to say I'm in support of the staff resolution. Thank you.
Thanks. Greg Fagan is next, followed by Brandon Smith. Afternoon.
Good afternoon, everyone. Nice to see you again. Feels like it's been decades of coming up here over the years. I just want to level my support for this team that I've worked with on numerous projects over the last 20 plus years, and have 100% confidence in them. And of course, we've done some major developments here in Martin County, and it's good to be back and look very much forward to participating on this project and seeing it to fruition. Sorry about my voice. Thank you.
Thanks. Brandon Smith is next, followed by Jonathan Atz.
Good afternoon. Wanted to say that I'm in full support of the staff's recommendation. I personally was out in at the Indiantown High School project on a day-in, day-out basis, worked with their team, and I'm looking forward to working with your team to bring this to fruition in the same timeline.
Thanks. Jonathan Atz is the last request to speak form I have. If you would like to address us, please fill out one of these forms and hand it to the bailiff.
Yes, ma'am. I would just say that I'm in support of the recommendation as well. Thank you.
Back to the board.
What are you looking for?
Discussion, a motion?
I'm new here. I'm not sure.
Here's the staff recommendation. Mr. Campy.
I will say that the P3 process is new. Obviously, we've heard that. It's not something that a lot of us are familiar with. So I have been trying to spend some time researching it, speaking to folks. It feels a little bit out of reach because most of the decisions we make, we have life experiences and sort of it's been the way that it's been. This one, I was listening to the comments of the last agenda item, and I do not disagree with Commissioner Vargas when you want to make sure that you take in as much information and proposals as possible. This is a lot of money. But when I've done the homework on how these things work in other countries and in other areas, it is although something that's a little unfamiliar to me, it is something that has worked out for a lot of owners, whether it's governments or whatever, very successfully. I did have the opportunity to participate in the very early stages of the Indiantown High School with the gentleman that was their largest donor. And one of the things he said was right at the first meeting with IRSC that, and some of the school board members, that he was an older gentleman and wanted to see the project be built before he passed away. And remarkably, what felt like a very short time later, I was out there standing in a gorgeous facility, beautifully done. And when I asked around to the IRSC Foundation and their board and the president and others that were involved in the process, nobody had a bad word to say. They thought it really went very, very well. So with that in mind, that's sort of where I have to put the pebbles on the scale. That's where it is. I don't have a tremendous amount of personal experience, but the folks that do, that I reached out to, felt very comfortable that I could sort of sign on to that, and I will. I'll make a motion to accept staff's recommendation.
Commissioner Hetherington.
I've had the opportunity to work on some P3 projects before, and I think they offer Martin County not only increased efficiency, but economies of scale. And I think that this group has demonstrated just how they can perform based on how Indiantown High School went. So I'll gladly second the motion.
Commissioner Capps.
I was just going to second. I'm comfortable with this proposal, and I will support it as well.
Commissioner Vargas.
I'm not opposed to P3 projects. I might be involved in one shortly. However, we do not have enough information, and for folks to say on this commission that everything's fine, we're just going to go with the same company, not what I've heard from people. They said, what? How much is this going to cost? Are you kidding? I don't know what the hesitation is to solicit other bids. It's really quite simple. You do that. And we're talking about not next month, as I said, moving out. It will comply with the agreement with the FAA. But we need to have the education to see what else is possibly in our benefit. And our benefit, I mean Martin County residents and citizens and taxpayers. And this is where I stand. For that reason, I cannot. I oppose this.
Any further comments? There's a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
That
Opposed?
motion passes 4-1 with Commissioner Vargas dissenting. Thank you.
Thanks.
And Mr. Walden, we will now take up item number Department 7, which is an update on the Chancey Bay Animal Processing Facility.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good afternoon, Commissioners. Peter Walden, Deputy Growth Management Director. The board requested that a discussion item come back regarding a animal processing facility in western Martin County. That is located on the Chancey Bay Ranch. So I'll go through a quick dissertation of the project scope, the timeline of the application, and where the project stands at this time. So it came in as a major final site plan because the project was 56,000 square feet, so it met the threshold for that in Article 10. It was planned on 26 acres of the 2,000-acre cattle ranch. It's located, as I said, in western Martin County at 8401 Southwest Connors Highway, which is a road that goes along the rim ditch along Lake Okeechobee. The land use is agricultural, and the zoning district is A2 Agricultural District, which is a Category C district. This is a map excerpt of the area. The area in red is the Chancey Bay Ranch. The proposed facility was on the northern edge of the ranch. Lake Okeechobee to the west. FPL just to the southeast, and beyond that, the Village of Indiantown's Urban Service District. This is an excerpt of the site plan that was proposed. This is Connors Highway where it would enter. An improved driveway would lead down to the facility. There was planned water detention and septic systems, and of course the 56,000 acre facility itself. So the timeline, it goes back a few years. We first were introduced to the project in 2020 when it came in for a pre-application meeting. At that time, it was a brief discussion with no site plan provided. It was just talking about processing animals that were grown and raised on the ranch itself. A couple years later, the project came in as a major final site plan, and we went through 2 rounds of review. The discussions began to stall. It became apparent that the applicant was pretty adamant about it being a bona fide agricultural process and that our development review may not be required. So after a while, we did not hear from them. And then several years later, we did get about a year after we had stopped talking, we got a letter from the General Counsel of Florida Department of Agriculture and Consumer Services, or FDACS, basically outlining the fact that the local the county would not be required to review the project, that it was considered bona fide ag, that the facility itself was considered a farm building, and within the Right to Farm Act, that would be considered bona fide agricultural use, and that and over the years, the actual description of bona fide agriculture has grown, and it's become more ambiguous and allowed more uses to be implemented into that. So we accepted that letter as General Counsel intended, and shortly after that, the application was withdrawn from our development review process. And that's pretty much where we stand now. We don't know what has been taking place since then out on the property, and I'll be glad to try and answer any questions we have regarding the subject.
Any questions for staff? Mr. Vargas.
So this morning, we had quite a few people out here. I've had people call me also. I've had people stop me about this. So our hands are tied. Is that what I'm understanding?
That's correct.
So no matter what we would want to represent here, which I talked about this morning, which I learned, Washington, Tallahassee, this is the movement that's happening right now underfoot.
Correct. As you heard, our other legislative things going on with the state, this is another example of preemption.
Mm-hmm.
Commissioners, I am going to allow a presentation of information from the Guardians. Greg Braun is going to make a very brief PowerPoint presentation.
Sorry. Oh. It is?
Oh, yeah.
It's already loaded.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Sure.
And thanks for giving me the opportunity to talk about this project. Indeed, as you saw this morning, there are quite a variety of Martin County people who are concerned about this. And while I don't disagree with what Mr. Walden has presented to you, I'm afraid that the interpretation of withdrawn has been misinterpreted by everybody. Indeed, the application to Martin County may have been withdrawn, but as far as we know, the project is moving forward, and unfortunately, that means it's moving forward without any environmental controls. And so, indeed, I do have a PowerPoint that I'd like to go through in a minute, but I'd like to start off just saying I am a professional ecologist, Greg Braun, here representing the Guardians of Martin County. I'm the executive director. And certainly, we thank you for having this public opportunity for public comment because you're not required to do so. FDACS and the Water Management District and DEP all took the easy way out and shielded the general public from providing any kind of input whatsoever. So I thank you for at least giving our residents, your constituents, the opportunity to speak. When the Guardians first heard about this over a year ago, we started looking into it because we indeed had concerns about environmental kinds of things. And so a couple months ago, I provided to you the position paper that the Guardians put together with input from a variety of our conservation colleagues, several of whom spoke this morning. Mark Perry, one of the esteemed people on water quality, provided us some input into that because of our concerns about potential impacts on the Lake Okeechobee watershed, which, as you know, has been designated as impaired. So you've had some time to look through that. We met with staff last week to just kind of talk about things, including kind of an interesting nuance of the legal interpretation of how we got to your preemption. So I'll speak about that in a minute. But I will say that the reason that preemptions happen is because, indeed, Martin County has a reputation everywhere for having some of the most stringent protection standards in the state. That makes it a great place for all of us to live and work and recreate, but that also puts a target right on our back for people who want to get around those kinds of protections. And I see that the Guardians feel that that's exactly what has happened here. The state went through the same analysis that you did when they got an application. They went through their process of determining what was going to be needed to allow them to process the application. And when the applicant got that package of information saying, please give us this, this, and this, they did the same thing to the state DEP that they did to you. They turned around and walked away, pulled their application, and said, we're not providing it to you. And they tried to do an end run around. So as far as we can tell, there has been an exemption from DEP that has been issued saying that DEP finds that the millions of gallons of water that are going to be used for this project and put on the landscape does not require a permit. We think that's wrong. And while we've got concerns from the environmental standpoint, I'm not naive enough to think that environmental things are going to carry the day on this. I think it's going to be legal things. And so we have identified in our position paper a variety of legal kinds of avenues that we would ask that you pursue on this. And probably the strongest one is that you don't even need to look to case law to determine this. You just look at the Florida statute. So I'm going to read to you the applicable section here, which is out of section 193-461 that states, agricultural purposes do not include the wholesaling, retailing, or processing of farm products, such as by a canning factory. Same kind of thing. We believe that if Chancey Bay Ranch were raising their own cattle for slaughter on their own property, that would be covered under the Right to Farm Act. The fact is, though, that they're bringing in cattle from all over, not just Martin County, but throughout the state, maybe out of the entire southeastern U.S., that will be slaughtered in this meat processing facility. That takes it out of the agricultural realm and into the industrial realm. And that's where we think you have the legal opportunity to push back on FDAC's determination. So Peter, if you would go through my slides here, if you can all see them here. I've just got a couple short slides. First, our location maps that you already know where this is at, up in northwestern Martin County. On this one, I'm going to point out to you and everybody else watching, Martin County's boundary goes right out there into the middle of Lake Okeechobee. So that's indeed part of why we're so interested in this. We know that there are algae blooms in Lake Okeechobee, and the problems are nutrient related. And this project can do nothing but exacerbate those water quality problems. Next slide, please. Again, just a location map. You know where it is, east of Connors Highway. Although the applicant's property does extend on the west side, the only part of the property that would be used for this is that east of Connors Highway. Next one. We do know that you went through a development review activity a year or so ago for some houses on that property, completely unrelated to this, but they hired a public relations consultant for that project. And we've talked with them about this particular project, and the public relations consultant says they don't have any client that we can talk with about this project. If they can spend the resources to hire a public relations consultant to deal with 9 homes, we think that you ought to be able to reach out to them and get some information on a 2,000-acre ranch and a 26,000-acre meat processing facility. Next slide, please. Peter did put up the site plan, and indeed, this is a matter of public record. It's through the South Florida Water Management District. They have gone through an extensive permit process with South Florida Water Management District. And although there might have been the opportunity for public comment on this, it was not high enough profile that, as far as I know, there was any public input on it at all. They have gotten permits to withdraw millions of gallons of water from the surficial aquifer, which, as you know, in our area, this is considered a water cautionary area. We've already got problems with saltwater intrusion in the surficial aquifer. We'd like to know, how is that water going to be treated? There's no information anywhere about how it's going to be treated, to what standards, or if there is any water quality monitoring that is to take place. Traffic, we understand that from this plan that they have asked to put a turn lane onto 98. That suggests to us that they know that they're going to be bringing in lots of cattle from other areas. We think that the county should be able to look at that project and make sure that those transportation proposals are something that meets the county's comp plan and land development regulations. We'll talk about wetlands on the next slide. I'm wearing my bald eagle tie today because we know that there are bald eagle nests on the 2,000-acre ranch. And we know that if the county was going through the review process, you would require a preserve area management plan on a portion of the property, which without your review, that's not going to take place. Threatened and endangered species, also, we suspect that there are some on that property. They've identified caracaras on the property, one of the protected bird species. If you were requiring a preserve area management plan, there would also be a requirement for removal of invasive pest plants. That's otherwise not going to happen. The county has spent millions of dollars in trying to go through the process for the BMAP to clean up water in Lake Okeechobee. The Lakeside Ranch property, which is right immediately to the north of this, has taken millions of dollars of tax monies to create that facility. We think it is inappropriate that this adjoining ranch could produce millions of gallons of water, and we can't learn what's going to happen with the fertilizers that are brought onto the property and where that water is going to go. In our FOIA request for FDACS, the Florida Department of Agriculture and Consumer Services, we did get a stack of papers. Included in that was several cover letters stating that the property owner was not in compliance with their BMPs. What we got was the cover letter that says you're not in compliance as shown on the attached sheet, and the attachment isn't there. We made the request, how do we know how far out of compliance they are? When we asked for volumes of fertilizers that have been applied onto the ranch, we got data sheets back that showed redacted. So we don't know how many millions of pounds of fertilizers are going on. And if we don't know that now, when they start bringing in cattle from elsewhere, we can only assume that there's going to be additional fertilizers that are brought on, and that's going to be completely unregulated. Next slide. We do know that there are historic wetlands on the property. You see on the picture on the left. There are open water areas, whether they're currently wetlands or what they call other surface waters. We don't know, but you can tell from the algae bloom on that pond, something isn't right. There's an abundance of fertilizers, nutrients that have caused that algae bloom. The picture in the middle is one that I took of the canal that is leaving from the Chancey Bay Ranch, going straight out to the Rim Canal. There's no kind of water treatment swales or anything like that. And so our concern is that out of the millions of gallons of water that they're going to be withdrawing onto this from the superficial aquifer used for their processing, there is no point of discharge. So we can only assume that that's going to be land applied, and the nutrients will help the water or help the grazing of the cattle. But where's that water going to go when it rains? It's going to go right out this canal that you see is already laden with a variety of invasive species that like the elevated nutrients, and is going to go into the Rim Canal. Next slide. We know that Lake Okeechobee is vulnerable to intermittent algae blooms, and that unfortunately through the St. Lucie Canal, the C-44, often that toxic algae gets swept down into the St. Lucie estuary. We don't want that to be happening, and we've spent millions of dollars trying to get the nutrients out of the Lake Okeechobee system. Obviously, the political will isn't there to prevent additional nutrients in, but you can take a step here to at least make sure that the water quality coming off of this ranch is not going to exacerbate water quality in the Rim Canal. We did research this through a variety of other conservation colleagues, and I've got in an appendix to our report the paper over on the right from the Center for Biological Diversity. I didn't know anything about slaughterhouses before this project came up, so it's been a learning experience for me, but we were using the information from that group that has experience throughout the country, and what we did was analyze each of their areas of concern as to how they apply or don't apply here in Martin County. So with that, let me just close by saying FDACS and FDEP in Tallahassee and the Water Management District in West Palm Beach, they don't care as much about Martin County as all of you do and those people who were in the room this morning. So please consider engaging outside counsel with experience in the Florida Right to Farm Act to help prevent further degradation of the environment in Martin County. Sometimes you just have to stand up to bullies, and we think it's time to do that in this case. I'll answer any questions if you have them, but thank you for the opportunity to speak.
Commissioner Capps.
I want to thank the Guardians, first of all, for championing this effort and doing such a deep dive on the matter. And thank you for your excellent presentation, Mr. Braun. And this is in my district. And can we go back to the map? The very first slide, I think it was. It just had a picture of the lake and a little circle. Yeah, of all the places to have something like this, right on the edge of Lake Okeechobee. Seems like a very inappropriate place. I want to refer to one of the public comments early this morning. Tony Zanino is the president of the Guardians, and he called for an independent legal review. And I think that's what you're asking for here as well, Mr. Braun. And that seems very reasonable. You know, just because the state is claiming a preemption doesn't mean that it legally exists. And it seems to me that there are very good arguments that this is an industrial use on agricultural land. I mean, you can't just claim that something's agricultural when it's clearly industrial. Perhaps those lines get blurred, and the ultimate remedy is a legal route and a court determination as to whether it's agricultural or industrial, and I think this is worth the fight. So I would make a motion that we have that independent legal review. Another part of my motion would be that I think it's really important for the people who took the deep dive on this subject to be confident in who the attorney is, and perhaps to be a part of that process in selecting the right attorney, so that you all are comfortable with the process and the legal pursuit, and that you have confidence in the people doing it. So I would make the motion that we authorize independent legal review, and that the Guardians be consulted as to who the attorney would be that would conduct that review.
Ms. Elder.
Just for some background clarification, so over the years, the Right to Farm Act has evolved and been expanded dramatically. And the statute that Mr. Braun discussed, which was Florida Statutes 193-461, is really the statutory criteria that the property appraiser needs to review to determine whether or not a piece of property has an ag exemption. And what she does is she looks at that statute, and that's where the definitions that Mr. Braun had read to the board, they are completely different than the Right to Farm Act. So under the Right to Farm Act, non-residential farm buildings are exempt from permitting under the building code. And under that Right to Farm Act, the statutory definitions for farm product, and farm operation are extremely broad. So based on that and the change over the years that the legislature has continually expanded the definition of farm product and farm operation, that is part of the basis for not challenging the FDAC's letter. Is general counsel binding on us? No. But it might not be a fight that the county would win based on the legislature, based on the definition of farm product. A farm product, and I'll read it to the board, is any plant or animal or any product derived therefrom. And then if you have an existing farm, a non-residential farm building is completely exempt from permitting under the building code. And a farm operation means any activity, and I'm picking the points that are applicable, which occur on a farm in connection with the production of farm products. So that's pretty broad, and that's been expanded since 2022. So the criteria in 193-461 is used, so if you have an existing farm and you have a non-residential farm building, and there's many statutes that come into play because you also have agritourism involved. So say you have a non-residential farm building on the farm. The property appraiser will go there and look at what is being done in that building to determine whether or not that building gets the ag exemption. So sometimes you'll see a property where the whole property has an ag exemption, but there's a little building carved out because what's being done in that building is not ag. It could be agritourism. It could be a meat processing plant. So that's what the context of 193-461 comes into play for the property appraiser to review the property, look at the criteria, and determine whether or not what is being done on the farm and every aspect on the farm gets an ag exemption. It's not applicable to the Right to Farm Act, which is where you get your exemption from the building code. So it's two separate statutory provisions that are somewhat related, but not really. It's really what guides the property appraiser to determine whether your property gets a complete ag exemption or a partial ag exemption. So I just wanted to clarify that for the board.
And indeed, our attorney has looked into this, and thank you for that interpretation. Mike Durham, former county attorney, looked into this, and he tells us that there is a very refined nuance here under the Right to Farm Act. And certainly no disparagement to the county attorney's office whatsoever. It is such an area of specialty, we think that it warrants that outside legal counsel with experience in the interpretation of that Right to Farm Act. We think this is a high-stakes kind of issue, maybe not as big as those preemptions that we were hearing about being brewed in Tallahassee right now. But for Martin County, a slaughterhouse on a property that is twice the size of Central Park without any environmental review, that's just not what should happen in Martin County.
Mr. Campy.
Certainly not interested in weighing in on this situation, but I get that you're here and I appreciate your efforts. We've had the chance to meet and have a conversation as well as that I have had with the staff. My concern is twofold. One, if you've already begun the process and the Guardians of Martin County have a long history, illustrious history of doing exactly that, guarding Martin County. You've had your attorney take a look, and there's a possibility that, as Commissioner Capps was saying, that you might have some recommendations of attorneys that would be the right person. Now, I don't think he told us, my colleague didn't say about us beginning legal procedures against the state or FDACS with this. It was more just to look into it. But you've already looked into it. So is this something, and I'm just speaking to you as a friend, is this something that the Guardians should be doing with your extensive fundraising abilities to raise money, ability to have a battle cry, a call for action? What's the rationale or the advantage to have us do it? And here's my thinking. The concept, the initials FDACS has come up quite a bit recently. And you as a big, early founder of the Loxalucy, and when we were just doing the Barbie Ranch project purchase, that was FDACS. So if, Mr. Mail, if you could come forward, see that seat, that hot seat next to Pete Walden. And I'm not saying I disagree. I just want to bring these concerns to the surface so that we're all looking at this wide-eyed. FDACS partnered. Now, we just heard them called, and I get it, I get why you're here, but you called them a bully, that we should stand up to a bully. But recently, we were just calling them partner. So tell me about the Barbie Ranch deal and any other deals that are pending that FDACS we would classify as a partner.
For the record, John Mayle, Environmental Resource Administrator. Barbie was actually Florida Forever.
The whole thing?
Yeah, but it's a good example. That was one that was being considered by FDACS. At some point, they were working with the Rural and Family Lands folks to bring that one forward. But a better example is probably Bull Hammock.
I apologize for confusing the two.
Yeah, West Carlton's 6,500 acres was put under a Rural and Family Lands conservation ag easement last year, or a little over a year ago. $52 million.
Where'd the money come from?
All from FDACS, and they get it from the legislature, and they continue to get it from them. This year, the House has proposed $500 million for rural and family lands and zero for Florida Forever. The Senate is a little bit more balanced. We have 4 more FDACS easements that we are working through as we speak. That would partner with Martin County Forever as funding partners, between 30 and 50% of funding from the county and the rest from FDACS. Another way that we partner with them recently is they have a new funding allotment from the legislature that allows them to do grants for regional water quality projects. We actually kind of help them draft the language for that grant program, and the S1 Canal is one of the early ideas for using that regional water quality funding program as a partner with local governments in cases where you've got agricultural runoff as well as non-agricultural runoff working together. We would anticipate applying for additional funds from that program as well.
The 4 projects that you mentioned are in the pipeline. Not to hold you to an exact number, give us a ballpark of what we're talking about in dollars.
It's tough. If I had to just ballpark it, probably 15 to 20 million. But there's some additional ones that could be significantly higher. There's one we're looking at that could be another Bull Hammock, in the near future.
So my concern is this. We have days where we're partnering with them, and then we have days where we'll disagree. I heard your whole presentation. I didn't disagree with most of what you said. It was pretty logical and very well laid out. You and I had shared it ahead of time. My concern, representing the entire scope of the county and the future of these types of projects, which we are finally in the front seat with them now, because we have the sales tax referendum with Florida Forever. We finally can partner with them and we were just cheering about how we could use one Martin County dollar and turn it into $2 or $3 or $4 for this. My concern's got to have been the conversation you guys must have had back at headquarters because you're trying to do the same thing. The Loxalucia initiative, we're trying to do those same partnerships with them. Take a dollar, turn it into more. Do you have any concern that if we poked at something that they've painted pretty much a picture that it's in their backyard and within their scope of approvals, are we hurting ourselves more to try to prove a point here that we don't like how this is going down, or not? Is this something that a statewide recognized organization such as the Guardians should be taking the charge to give us a little kind of, you're still working on the behalf of Martin County residents, but should it be the government of Martin County pushing back so hard? Because one more question for Mr. Mail. Any applications or grant applications in the recent past not gone our way?
Yes.
During this time frame?
Yes. We had one on the S1 Canal that was 1.9 million, and we were fully anticipating receiving that, and at the last minute we got a call from staff that the Secretary's office suggested that we not get that grant.
Whose staff?
FDACS.
Okay. That's where I am. What you're asking for makes perfect sense in a vacuum. But in the bigger picture, I'm leery of supporting my friend. Makes a makes a strong motion. That's where I am. Do I want drainage and, just as soon as you hear the word slaughterhouse, it's not that, most people can sort of understand what we're talking about. And in Martin County, I thought Mr. Walden did a pretty good presentation about how we were originally engaging with them until they realized they didn't need to. And then they switched over to engage with the Florida Department, the DEP, and realized they didn't need to. So now they went to FDACS and basically worked out, and our legal representative, the person who's working for us, said, look, this is going to be a challenge. So I don't mind a fight or a skirmish, even if it's not a fight. But what are we gambling to just find out that FDAC says you are not in a position to be making approvals up or down on something, even though it's in your county? And so I didn't mean to put our staff on the spot, but I get to hear these things, and I want everyone else to hear them, that it's not like, of course we should do this. It makes perfect sense that we back you in something that looks really environmentally questionable. But if the final solution is that it's not environmentally questionable, or it's not within your purview, did we damage something else that we are so desperately trying to do? Is the bigger environmental benefit continuing to partner with a Tallahassee entity, or is the fight to see who should be in charge of making these determinations, even if it means setting a precedent into the future to protect us from other things? That's where I am. Thank you.
I thank you for the opportunity to carry on this dialogue, because indeed this is unusual. Typically, there's a 3-minute presentation and that's it. But I appreciate that offer. And the Guardians do not like winners and losers. We'd like to collaborate so that a project, if it does move forward, is good for the environment, good for the economy, good for the farmers. Mr. Mail has described the collaborative relationship with FDACS, and I would suggest a way out of this is if he can coordinate with FDACS and we can get rural and family lands money for Chansey Bay Ranch. That's the kind of a win-win that we would be assured that environmental damage is not going to happen. They could continue their ranching at the existing levels, not bringing in thousands of cattle from all over the southeastern U.S., and that through that process, we might be able to hold the property owner to compliance with the BMPs, which currently they have not consistently done.
I have one request to speak from the public, and that's Carol Ann Leonard. If anybody else would like to address us, please fill out a request to speak form, hand it to the bailiff, and the bailiff will hand it to me.
Do you prefer a microphone over there, Miss Leonard?
No, it's okay. I'll hop them up here.
Afternoon.
I'm Carol Ann Leonard from Stuart. Can you hear me okay?
Uh-huh.
Our Florida State Legislature is too authoritarian in the way they are taking away the ability of local government and the public from making laws for their own counties, evident from the FDEP letter to the South Florida Water Management and so on. The Agricultural and Consumer Services seems to want to still do that. So I'm thinking of comments from the majority.
Your mic is not on. 1 second, ma'am, your mic is not on.
No, okay. I hope you heard what I said. I think you probably did. Still enough comments from the commissioners and the people could have an influence on decisions. What we must do is, we must do what is needed to take back our rights. When one is considering a slaughterhouse, we need to consider the facts, and the owner needs to tell us what the plans are for the facility and their production. Any legal requirements that can be made should be, I think. The letter states possible problems, things that need to be monitored. The end of the letter suggests several ways to do this. I'm not an expert, but it seemed good. Let's see, Greg Braun made lots of good points with proper environmental oversight of water, soil, and air quality, the prevention of any leaching into nearby waters in Lake O and the Rim Canal. I think a slaughterhouse may possibly be built. Regulations and oversight before and anything before and after is still needed. What about reducing the size of the facility? Our farmers need to be able to continue farming and not be enticed to sell out to developers. Local ranchers could continue to raise their cattle, not have the added expenses to get them to market in distant areas with a local slaughterhouse. For too long, developers have been getting owners of orange groves decimated by diseases to sell their property to continue the overdevelopment in Martin County. There are some online sources for treating the soil of groves for further agricultural production, but the owners choose instead to sell, dazzled by supposedly high incomes. Stormwater runoff is an issue. We do need regulation and to set a precedent. Let's be fair and precise when considering the impacts on any development. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Thurlow-Lippisch, I'm sorry, but we only allow people to speak once a day. I'm just going to be reading some statistics from the Guardian's white paper, and that includes U.S. slaughter facilities produce millions of pounds of pollution annually. Slaughterhouses are a top producer of phosphorus, generating 14% of the phosphorus discarded into waterways. Environmental Integrity Project study of 98 large slaughterhouse facilities found that the median slaughterhouse produced an average of 331 pounds of nitrogen a day, which is equivalent to the nitrogen pollutants in the untreated sewage of 14,000 people a day. No records have been found that the Chancey Bay Ranch has been issued a permit, although NPDES permits have been issued for 328 other sites in Martin County. Lake Okeechobee, in September 2025, Lake Okeechobee has just been named the dirtiest lake in America. A pork processing plant owned by JBS in Illinois spilled 29 million gallons of hog waste in 2015, killing nearly 65,000 fish. We don't know how many cattle are proposed to be brought to the Chancey Bay Ranch. There is a question about general counsel opinions preempting local government authority. FDAX issued its opinion supporting CBR's exemption claims while simultaneously pursuing enforcement action against CBR for best management practice violations. This conflict is particularly problematic because CBR operates within the Lake Okeechobee Basin Management Action Plan, where BMP compliance is legally mandatory. And we're also reliant, we have our own BMPs. And they're going to be enforced. They're going to be, we don't know, what the enforcement is going to be. We don't know what the consequences are going to be because we haven't hit that deadline yet. But if our upstream neighbors are polluting, then we're never going to be able to comply with our own BMP regulations. I don't know what to do, but man, no one is responsible for monitoring, measuring water quality that's going to be going off of this 2,000-acre ranch and 26-acre slaughterhouse. I'm speechless. I believe that I believe that the general AFDAC's legal counsel's opinion here is wrong. I certainly hope that our regulatory abilities, our regulatory authorities are not extinguished by this opinion. Somebody has to protect our water quality. I can't imagine anybody would hold that against Martin County for wanting to make sure that our water quality isn't diminished. I mean, I think that's one of the obligations of local government. Commissioner Campy.
I'm not disagreeing with anything that you said or that the Guardian said. I just want all of us to look at the big picture and understand exactly what's on the table here. If the board agrees that this is what we should do, we should just know that we're going in a certain direction, and we need to have our eyes wide open so that in the future, when we're potentially, and I'm hoping that it's not the case, but when we're potentially frustrated on not having the level of success that we've had, because the FDAC's $500 million that you were talking about, not exclusively FDAC's, but the money out of Tallahassee, that can go everywhere in the state. And we're forced now in a situation where someone has decided to put this issue in our laps, and I don't want to hamstring our ability to partner and maximize our hard-earned tax dollars that the voters said yes to, and then go from a very successful, bright future program to, wow, now we don't have it. So I'm not trying to disagree with Mr. Braun or you, Commissioner Hurd. I just think that you got to see this whole thing.
But I'm not trying to shut down the slaughterhouse. What I'm trying to do is to make it safe. To make it safe for everybody. I want it to be bona fide ag. You know, I want ag to continue to be successful in Florida. It's a hugely important part of good stewardship of the land. But man, this is not the way to get there.
How about a crazy suggestion? If we were to reach out to them, I don't know them. I genuinely have no idea who the folks are. I'm not saying that they won't do it perfectly great, but maybe with John Mayle and some of our people, they'd give us an opportunity to just go over there unofficially and have a tour. Not an official kind of like we're trying to review your application, but maybe they can, we can put a small group to go over and sit down with them as neighbors and friends and partners and say, listen, we have legitimate concerns. You might be getting ready to do the most fabulous slaughterhouse that anyone has ever seen. They live there. They asked, as Mr. Braun said, I think the houses that we approved a year or so ago, whenever that was, across the street, I think that was them. If I remember correctly, they were talking about building homes that they were going to live in. So maybe they are remarkable stewards of the land, agricultural. Look, every person I spoke to about this in the last week or so, all meat eaters have said, I'm not opposed to a slaughterhouse. I understand that there's a process that allows us to eat, that happens before we eat this meat. Maybe they're going to build a remarkable facility, and maybe they'd be willing to have, John Mayle is very friendly. He could go out with a couple other people and not try to say that we're looking to approve or deny their application, just looking for some level of comfort that we can come back and say our people have, went out there and met with them because they were willing to do it. Just, they didn't have to, they just were willing to. I'm sure some of us can make a call. I know that the person that was their government liaison or whatever, their public relations person for the houses, I know him. He's got to know somebody. So, as a suggestion.
I like that suggestion.
Mr. Donaldson.
Just a couple of things that hopefully will help. I think the option of having staff try to engage both FTACs and the owners on both the technologies on how they deal with the disposal of the material. We've got our contract with Cedron. I think that has an opportunity to deal with it. We have partnered with FDACs in the past on hybrid wetland treatment technologies that they continue to invest in. So I think that is a positive route. I would say that I am concerned also about our regulatory approval and process on it, but I would be fearful that our engagement in that avenue would only result in a more well-defined preemption in the legislature either this year or early next year before any litigation was completed, and all other opportunities to work with them will have vanished. So I think I would rather try to at least work with the property owners to start with. I think some of the speakers earlier talked about that if there was a way to develop or work with the legislature in the future about maybe giving back us some of these tools so that there won't be any more than this one, is also a good direction. So that would be my staff recommendation, is to direct staff to work with both the property owner and FDACS and avail them to all of the current technologies that both FDACS has used and what we have to offer, and also to continue to work with our legislators on future actions that would give us some review back on projects like this.
Mr. Vargas?
Yes, this is my first year. Yep, I have that. I did not approve those homes, just putting it out there again. No, I did not. I did do a field trip out there. I felt that there was something disingenuous about that, but I couldn't quite put my finger on it until I saw the letter that was sent after the fact that the others approved it. See? I did have the opportunity during my first year to meet with the Deputy Director of Florida Department of Environmental Division. Very friendly folks, very willing to help us, and that's what we want. I think the representative, and I believe she was part owner, but I can't put my finger on it. She was Colombian. I was Colombian. Then she wanted to speak Portuguese to me, and I spoke Portuguese because I speak falo portugués también, having lived there. But the thing is that she was also from Miami. I would be willing, absolutely, to sit down with them and really define how they are going to protect the environment. Different procedures don't have to be followed elsewhere, but again, we're Martin County, and we have already defined how we want to see our county. And we have the Guardians. We have other groups that have been fighting the fight, a long fight, an arduous fight, and many people behind them. That's the way I want to support these groups. I would really make the proposal, as Mr. Donaldson said, let's sit down, let's talk with them if they're willing to, and let's see what they have in mind. Because if we just do not oversee anything anymore, we talked all about this morning, then where is Martin County? We kind of bleed into Palm Beach and St. Lucie County and Miami-Dade County and Broward County, and we're just one big puddle, I guess. So that's what I would recommend, and very happy to do that. And if that's the gal, I really want to speak to her again, really do. I'll have it in another language, and I'll translate for you.
Commissioner Capps?
You know, I don't know these people, but my feeling is that they've intentionally kept us from a lot of information. That's one signal. And the idea that they're going to invite us onto their property and feel the need to explain all of their processes just to satisfy our curiosity when they feel like they already have FDACS behind them, I think they would say, no thanks, we're good. We already got this. And I'm not sure it would be a workable solution. I wanted to see if we could ask Mr. Braun what he and the Guardians might think about the path that we should take, given recent comments up here today. I would like to be supportive of you and the Guardians because I have so much respect for what you all do and what you have done on this issue. And should my motion be worded a little differently in light of comments that have been made here today, which I think are very enlightening?
Thank you, Commissioner. Thank you, Commissioner.
Thanks, so.
No.
No.
There we go.
Nope.
Just tap it.
Supposed to say, can you hear me now?
On? On?
Yes, it's
On?
on. Have to lean
Okay.
down, sorry.
I'll hold it up close. Thank you for that. We believe that the Guardians taking on the legal side of it is really David and Goliath. We would prefer to be in partnership with Martin County. So I think your initial motion, Commissioner Capps, was good in that we could collaborate with you, and certainly with the county attorney's office to find someone who is well experienced with the Florida Right to Farm Act that might be able to ferret out these nuances. You're also right that I'm not sure that the property owner would meet with us. I have reached out personally to ask for a meeting to get details because, as you saw in my presentation, there are a lot of question marks because we don't know details because they are indeed intentionally hiding them because this is a very volatile kind of a project, which the growth management folks will know of as LULUs, locally unpopular land use. We're sure that that's why they don't want to share details about their project, because indeed it's apt to raise the wrath of lots of people who might not be as diplomatic as the Guardians are. So I think that's an excellent strategy. Let's start with that sort of diplomatic approach. We would like to hear that they have environmental safeguards in place, and maybe our opposition, won't even say opposition, maybe our concerns will go away. We haven't seen that there are any what they call effluent nutrient guidelines anywhere. There's no requirement for any kind of water quality monitoring. And so unless those questions are answered, we are going to be going from right now, we're not necessarily opposed to it. We just want to find out more about it. So maybe we start with that diplomatic approach, and your motion, if it were to be seconded and would carry through, would be a two-phase. We start with reaching out diplomatically, and we see where that leads us. And if indeed that outreach comes to the conclusion that our concerns are substantiated, then you've already approved going to that next step, and we're doing some sort of a collaboration.
Next step.
Great. I think you stated it well. I'll modify my motion to reflect what was just stated.
Mr. Vargas.
Okay, so, Mr. Braun, what would be the second step? Can you clearly state that?
Well, I think we're trying to work it out together here. It would be certainly, Mr. Mail has an excellent reputation from all sides, and if his outreach to the property owner would be successful, and we can get these answers, these questions answered to his satisfaction, I think that would satisfy our concerns. If we don't get answers
That's
to
where I'm
any of
going.
that,
That's what I want to know.
then we proceed with what I understood the initial motion to be, and that is that the county retain outside counsel with experience in the Right to Farm Act to not necessarily file a suit or a challenge or anything like that, but to do a more extensive research into the case law that would either substantiate that the FDAC's Attorney General has some backing to it, or, as we suspect, that Attorney General's opinion is based upon being essentially ghost-written by the applicant's attorney.
Wow, this is like a good movie. Yeah, exactly. But I get the picture and how this could end. It has to be very carefully done, because my question was not what the next step is to do. I got that. You said then we go to the next step. Are we guaranteeing a loss for us?
No, what we would be doing is asking that legal counsel to do that more in-depth review.
Understand.
And then if they say, as the county attorney's office has opined here, that the Attorney General's opinion is intact, that's where it would end.
I understand that. However, what about the guardians? We could possibly look to an attorney that our county attorney feels would be an expert at this, but that you, the guardians, or other organizations would then hire them to give an opinion. That would be on you.
I would certainly need to take that back to our board of directors.
Okay, take it back to your board of directors. I think that's very viable, though.
Mr. Hetherington?
Yeah, I thought we were getting ahead of ourselves, but it sounds like we're maybe reeling it back in a little bit. I think if you want to have a conversation with the property owner and the applicant, having approved the next step to be a legal endeavor is probably not going to inspire a lot of conversation. So I support the idea of actually reaching out and there's some fact versus fiction myths. I've heard a lot of things thrown out there today that I don't know if are accurate or not. I'm not an expert in slaughterhouses. There's got to be some standard best management practices that FDACS requires of these facilities. I would like to hear from FDACS and people that are that monitor and have these facilities. They're all over the state. There's got to be some standard practices. And it sounds like if this property owner is adhering to those, then we don't have an issue. But if they're not, is where we're going to be concerned. So I think there's a lot more fact-finding involved for the first step for this particular project. I think we can start with FDACS, and we certainly can reach out to the property owner, and you've provided a lot of valuable information that I think that requires answers.
Agreed.
Thank
Mr.
you.
Gampy?
If we are going to follow the strategy that Commissioner Capps was talking about in his motion, we need to figure out what level of a budget we're going to put together for that. I also wonder, if you're not talking, you said you felt like it was a David and Goliath. Well, that was a battle. But then you also said that you're just looking to hire an expert in the field of specifically what we're talking about. We have a great legal department that can do tremendous research. There's several of them. Maybe they're not agricultural experts, but instead of us, and they already work for us. They're already on the payroll. So short of putting, what do you figure it would have to be? 100 grand, 50,000, 100,000? I'd rather hang on to 100 grand, have our staff. If it's just doing that level of research and figuring it out, that's why we have them. I also agree with Commissioner Hetherington that if it's a two-pronged approach that says, look, we're going to knock on your door and try to reach out to you and with our neighborly and ask you, like, what's the original plan here? But if we don't like it, we will sue you. I'm not interested in that conversation either. So I think my suggestion would be that we ask our staff to do what you're asking, to do a deeper dive into what's the, the legality or does their legal opinion, what did you say, it was the Attorney General for FDACS? Let's do some research. Let our people do it first versus putting $100,000 into something to find out that, oh my God, they were right all along. We have no standing in this fight. I agree. Plus, maybe they're going to run the most state-of-the-art, environmentally sensitive slaughterhouse that ever existed. Maybe they won't, but we don't know. They're not from out of town. They're locals. They live there. As far as I can.
No, they're not from here.
The
No.
Chansey Bay folks that came when we approved, I approved.
I didn't.
I didn't.
Terrific. That being said, some of those folks that were sitting here in the audience were locals.
Yeah, I also agree that if, you know how we feel when an applicant comes to us and they're all lawyered up and we know that as soon as we say no, they're going to sue us. There's so little motive to negotiate. And I don't want to be in this aggressive posture either. I think that proceeding, first of all, with information gathering, fence mending, let's do these things first before we say, yeah, if this doesn't work out, we're going to sue you. Commissioner Vargas.
So No, we're not in the position to spend $50,000, $100,000. We pay handsomely. Our legal department, I propose that they do research. I mean, case law is case law. I think we have other slaughterhouses in Okeechobee. Is that correct? Yes, Okeechobee, and what other county nearby? Maybe they're in Polk County. I mean, they're all over Florida. I know because I've met folks who are ranchers, but they're also commissioners in the state of Florida. So we have 66 other counties to look at and see how do they do it. I think that we definitely can give a legal opinion, but if you want to go further, I don't think we ought to entertain that today. We can just do some research. Does that sound feasible, Ms. Elder?
Yes.
Okay. More than what we've already done. All right. So these folks may not be totally local that are proposing these homes and also this slaughterhouse and whatever else may come up agriculturally. But I think this would be the first step rather than, going on and on with conversation about this today. So I make a motion that we do our in-house thorough research on this matter and get back with you, and then take up the ball there. Speak with your board of directors in the meanwhile.
Commissioner Capps.
I think expertise in legal research is really, really important. I have great confidence in our legal staff, and I'm sure they would be very enlightening, but there are probably attorneys out there who really deal in this wheelhouse, and having the confidence that we're dealing with the very best of attorneys in that particular field is very important. And I don't see the big deal here. We're not agreeing to file a lawsuit. We're agreeing to have a really well-written position paper by an independent legal counsel. That's not going to cost a fortune. And we would all feel a whole lot better if we had that. And we knew how we could use it in the next steps. And then that's where this issue with FDACS and our relationship with them comes into play. It really doesn't come into play with doing the study and preparing a great position paper. It has to do with what we do with it after that. And I don't know that FDACS would even know that we're doing a study. Is there any big harm to?
They're listening. They're watching you.
I don't think so. They're very busy people. I don't, just because a local government authorizes a study and we don't actually use it in a legal proceeding, I don't think there's any great harm done there. Mr. Mayo, what do you think about that? You solved it.
Don, I'll answer that one. I
think we need another flag revealed.
Commissioner, I will say that our legislators and multiple ones watch meetings, and anytime you all talk about this, it's already discussed. So I think there are no secrets in this town, and there are no secrets in Tallahassee.
That's a point well made.
So
I agree.
The fact that we're discussing about it is already going to be a conversation in Tallahassee, and any actions you take will be noted.
I see the point.
Mr. Vargas.
Okay, I go back to my other point. Let's try and have a friendly meeting. They don't want to do that. And then why don't we have our legal counsel just thoroughly research? They know how to present a position paper. And that's it. Then we'll know where we are. And then you will decide how you want to go forward. Do you understand?
I do, and I feel pretty confident that the Guardians Board would allocate the funds for our legal counsel to work with staff on that. They know one another, they've worked together.
Perfect.
I think that could work.
Okay, so Ms. Elder has help. All right.
And just on your other point, we did look at other meat processing facilities, and there are dozens around the state. Indeed, getting details on many of those is difficult. Certainly none of them that we found are within a watershed that is designated as impaired and for which millions of dollars are being spent to try to bring them into compliance. And also, those that we did identify are relatively small operations. Nothing of the scale of a meat processing facility that is the size of what's proposed here, which is about the average size for a Publix shopping center, a Publix grocery store. Not the shopping center, but the store itself.
Yes, understand. Very well. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Maybe I should clarify my motion based on what has been said here. So we start with outreach, that's number one, right? And then number two would be to instruct our legal staff to prepare some type of position paper on the subject matter? Is that what we're angling toward?
We would prefer to do some research on it as opposed to preparing a whole position paper, which could, if we end up in litigation, we wouldn't want to get out, but we can research it. We've researched it, and I know the Guardians have researched it extensively and hasn't come up with anything new, but we will research it again at the board's direction, of course, and we can update the board on it after that. And then we could I'd rather take the approach, figure out what the next step would be after we do the research.
Commissioner Capps, can I give you some motion suggestions? Make the motion the first thing that you just said, that we have a little group reach out to the folks out here and see what we come up with, and then report back to us and see where we stand. Maybe, all the planets align and we have a good meeting. I think that's just send our staff out there, with all due respect, without the Guardians, because you've made efforts to try to reach out and stuff like that. I think if we sent a couple of our key people, growth management, environmental, engineering, and sent them out, that they're watching, they're listening. If they're not now, they will hear this tape and go out and see what the story is. Maybe let's try that first. I think it creates an opportunity that, as you said, Mr. Braun, they don't owe us. They don't have to do it. They don't have to report anything back to us, but maybe they will. And then let's try that. And then if that also would give us some face saving in Tallahassee with FDACS, that we heard this, we gave you an opportunity to come and present, which officially Commissioner Hurd as chair did not need to do that. You said you could have had 3 minutes of public comment, but we had 45 minutes, an hour. We started at 2:22. It's 3:27. So with that in mind, I think let's just start with that and take it from there versus having the steps in place.
That's a motion, right?
I'll make that a motion, that we send out.
Second?
Just to clarify, we send out environmental, growth management, and whoever else our administrator feels is appropriate to see if they can have a sit-down and discuss this, knowing that they didn't need to, but we asked them to.
And also to FDAC.
Oh, yeah, of course.
Yes.
But at least we'll know what the project is.
That sounds reasonable. I would second that.
Any further discussion? There's a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That motion passes unanimously. Okay, let's take up our second to last item, which is Department 8.
Good afternoon, Commissioners.
Afternoon.
Matt Graham, Assistant County Administrator. So this is a board item to seek approval for a feasibility study to acquire the South Martin Regional Utility. About a month or two ago, Jupiter Island staff approached Martin County staff on the possibility of us acquiring their utility. They are currently at 60% capacity for their wastewater treatment plant. They are in need of some significant upgrades, so they reached out to see if we are interested. Before we move forward with that process, we're asking to do a feasibility study to see if it makes sense on connecting our Tropical Farms wastewater plant to service the SMRU customers. So with your approval, we would conduct a study, and we're anticipating it not to exceed $50,000. So that concludes my presentation, and I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Commissioner Capps.
Yes, the history of public utilities in the southern part of the county is quite interesting. From the 1970s to the mid-1990s, water and sewer were provided to this area of the county by a private company called Hydrotech, which the town of Jupiter Island later purchased and renamed SMRU, South Martin Regional Utilities. The reason the town of Jupiter Island purchased Hydrotech was to resolve some problems with saltwater intrusion into the water supply on the island. These problems were resolved with the development of a reverse osmosis RO plant, which has serviced the water needs of the island and the mainland of Hobe Sound very well over the years. As to the sewer component of SMRU, this was mainly to service the sewer needs of the mainland part of Hobe Sound, not the island, as the island's homes are on septic tanks. And the only part of the island that uses SMRU sewer is the Jupiter Island Club. So over the years, the aged sewer plant on Dixie Highway has serviced the sewer needs of mainland Hobe Sound satisfactorily, but the FDEP has adopted new standards that require expensive upgrades to the plant. And the town has been evaluating what to do with the sewer plant. And their options, they have three options that were presented at the meeting when we had this discussion at Town Hall on Jupiter Island. The first option is to spend the money to upgrade the sewer plant, which would be a large sum of money. And remember now, Jupiter Island really doesn't need the sewer plant for much. You know, all they use it for is the Jupiter Island Club. They just kind of inherited it when they bought Hydrotech in order really to just solve their water problems on the island. The option two is to sell the sewer plant to the Florida Governmental Utility Authority, the FGUA, which is a private company that would have the right to upgrade the plant and pass on these huge infrastructure costs to consumers in the form of high utility rates, which is not a very desirable option for Hobe Sound residents. The third option is to sell the sewer plant to Martin County that might have the ability to decommission the old SMRU sewer plant on Dixie Highway in northern Hobe Sound, and to incorporate the Hobe Sound sewer system into Martin County utilities at a much more reasonable cost. And we think that would really be a good way to go for Hobe Sound residents. And the reason I think option three is particularly good is that the sewer rates for Hobe Sound residents are likely to be in line with what the other residents of Martin County pay with their service from Martin County utilities. That's really important. If this thing goes to the FGUA, they can really jack the rates for Hobe Sound residents, which would really be pretty unfair. And then number two, Hobe Sound residents would be able to have their sewer service provided by the governmental entity to which they pay taxes. Right now, when Martin County residents in the northern part of the county have a problem with their sewer service, they can come in here and talk to this commission about what's on their mind. With the situation in Hobe Sound, a municipality that really doesn't even hardly use the service themselves is the entity that they would have to go complain to. So for those reasons, I think it would really be worth the effort to make this study, and the motion would be that the board approve staff's request to conduct a feasibility study evaluating the potential acquisition of South Martin Regional Utility wastewater plant operations, including consideration of utilizing the county's Tropical Farms wastewater treatment plant as a service alternative. So with that in mind, I would make that motion that we do that.
Commissioner Campy.
Thank you for that, District 3 Commissioner Capps. I have an option 4, that when I had the opportunity to speak to Mr. Graham and Mr. Amerson, I think that we should use the feasibility study to look at taking over, acquiring both portions of SMRU, also the water. I don't know if we would want to take on only the wastewater portion of it, which is their dilapidated portion. I would also say that whatever the study, if Mr. Graham said it cost $50,000, I think that would have to, like you would do something else, come out of whatever we eventually purchase, because we don't need it. As a county, we don't need to have their wastewater treatment plant, which is 60% capacity. It's older technology. It's failing. We did similar to this several years ago. I'm not even sure if Commissioner Hetherington was here. On Hutchinson Island with the Marriott Hutchinson utility, they kept it and ran it independently until it literally was on its last leg, and then the county stepped in and took it over. We also did it once in Palm City with Piper's Landing. Believe it or not, that community had its own little small utility plant, and they liked being independent from us to control whatever they wanted until it absolutely failed, and then contacted us to say, hey, we need to hand it over to you. And it seems like that's what we're hearing now, that they're pretty close to either, as Commissioner Capps did a terrific recap that said, they're going to have to either invest a tremendous amount of their own money to just get it back to standards, or that outside of the area company would come in, and I completely agree, that they would then, remember, most people think it's just Jupiter Island. It's not. It's a huge portion of just the working class folks that live in Hobe Sound, east of US 1 for the most part, and I guess up the US 1 corridor all the way to Heritage Ridge. I know that Point Siena Gardens, as far north as Point Siena Gardens, is also SMRU customers. And so I would like to see you look at taking over the whole thing. Now, I know the concern is that Jupiter Island has certain water expectations, levels, supply expectations. I think that could be negotiated into a conversation that their water supply could be guaranteed for X number of years, decades, whatever, so that they are not going to fight us on it. But just to take over the crippled wastewater portion, I remember, my final comment, I remember that in Palm City, the reason we didn't switch people over to purely septic to sewer without the water is that we don't have a mechanism to bill customers exclusively for sewer service, so that if they stopped paying, you couldn't shut off their sewer. That when you have the water, am I correct, Mr.?
You're right, yes.
That you bundle the water service and the sewer service together, so that if for some reason people don't pay, you have the mechanism of shutting off their water. I don't know if that's an everyday occurrence. When we had the conversation, I feel that it would be appropriate that we take over the entire SMRU. The rationale that they had it for all those decades has probably outlived its life. It's similar to what we were going to do in Indiantown before they decided to try what they're trying, which is going to be very difficult because they're only about $80 million away from their goal. I think if the motion maker would be interested in asking for at least us to study the ability of taking over both portions. And I would, if that's the case, I would second his motion.
Commissioner Vargas.
Yeah, I've had a lot of conversation about this with staff, with you, with Mr. Emerson, with Mr. Donaldson about this. And I understand that you want to do the study. I understand the condition of the plant that is out there now, and it's limping along pretty soon to die. Since we are going to be looking at, in this particular case, a motion was made, both water and sewer, then when will this study be complete?
I would anticipate we'll have something back within 60 days or so.
Okay. I think that's reasonable amount of time.
Be longer.
I think we're putting the cart before the horse. I think that we need to have a feasibility study and then determine what course of action we should take. I know that when we examined the Indiantown facility, we discovered that it was antiquated and was held together with,
Band-Aids.
Right. Yeah. So I don't want to prejudge, to conclude anything before we've done the feasibility study.
No, I'm only talking about the feasibility study.
Okay, so yeah, that's what we're going to do, the feasibility.
Okay.
Nothing else at this time. But we'll look at both, the water and the sewer.
Well, Commissioner Capps, you're the motion maker. Do you agree with that?
Well, we can change the motion.
Mr. Donaldson, you were there with us at Town Hall that day, and based on what you remember, are you comfortable with what's being stated here?
Yeah,
Initially, it appears that the island is not interested in selling the water portion, but it perhaps that could be talked about more?
Yes, if we did talk about the water system, and they were open to, they would want to own the water plant sufficient for the island, but we could own all the water infrastructure on the mainland as an idea. So I think absolutely the feasibility would include us. I think the issue is we want to look at what is the most advantageous to Martin County Utilities in its operation and the customers of Hope Sound. Look at the financial arrangements, how that work. It's just the preliminary work. We would bring that back to you. I would imagine this will probably be, as you all recognize, utility transactions are complicated, and that one analysis probably isn't going to do it if it continues on, or it might show that it's not in our interest at all, in which case it would stop with this one analysis. So we're very comfortable with including the water in there. I think the town is open to that a portion of the water, how that would work, and talking to with them at the meeting. We discussed that as a concept, and in my recent conversation with Bob Garlow, we briefly talked about it, and that was a concept that they were at least open to.
Great. So I think what you're saying is consistent with the staff recommendation and the board item here, which I just read.
Yes, with the clarification that with Commissioner Campy's that it does include water as well.
Yes. Okay. Well, I'll just keep that motion on the floor then.
And I will second it. Understanding that Hobe Sound SMRU customers are still Martin County residents. They're still our constituency. It's not like we're talking about Juneau or Jupiter.
That's about 2,000 homes, isn't it, or over that in Hope Sound? In that area?
It's more like 8,000.
Is it that many?
Water customers and sewer customers at SMRU.
Well, that's quite a bit. Okay, great.
There's a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That motion passes unanimously. We will now take a break until 5:05, and where we will resume for our final agenda item.